Conferences. So I want to welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining our professional development session. This is the fifth installment of the NLS Anti-Racism Professional Development Days. I'm really excited for today's session. And before we get started, I wanted to let you know that this session will be offered both in English and French. If you require French interpretation, please click on the link that I have just posted on the chat and then select French. If you have any questions regarding the French interpretation platform, there is a question icon on that link, and you will be connected to tech support who will be able to assist you should you have any questions. So again, I want to welcome you to our Professional Development Day. My name is Mari Carmen, and I, along with my colleague Ruben, will be your hosts today. And before we get started, I think it's important to get started in a good way. So I am going to welcome Ruben, who is going to do a critical land acknowledgement, and he's going to get us started in a good way. So Ruben, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, welcome. My name is Ruben Clark, and we invite you to join us in honoring Turtle Island, the sacred home beneath our feet, a cradle of life for our stories since time immemorial. I was born and raised in Toronto, so for me, the land and concrete are very much because I'm a city person. But we stand on and honor the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nations. Here I acknowledge my presence as an uninvited guest. Ontario is woven together by 46 treaties and agreements, a tapestry of promises that bind us to many Indigenous nations across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and Métis. These treaties, like the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are sacred vows to share and care for this land and its abundant gifts. We are all treaty people bound by these covenants, whether we are settlers, immigrants, or newcomers. We carry the responsibility to mend what has been broken and to walk this land with respect and love. Today, I also honor my ancestors, human and non-human, and our divine Mother Earth. But let's pause, because sometimes these land acknowledgements can feel performative, but so is saying I love you. Words have meanings that mean more than the act. And land acknowledgements are supposed to symbolize a connection. And so they're more than just mere utterance. They're sacred symbols that connect us to our earth. There's a power in the repetition. Every time we repeat a land acknowledgement, we are repeating and deepening our connection with respect for the land and all the people who have taken care of it since time immemorial. Land acknowledgements are also an act of reconciliation. It's not merely about mending human relationships, it's also about mending and protecting our relationship to the earth. And whenever we do these land acknowledgements, it allows us to honor the Indigenous caretakers of the land. So I just wanted to start that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruben. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you've personalized your land acknowledgement. I think it's so important when we do land acknowledgements to make a connection with our own positionality and our own complicities with the settler colonial project. So I do appreciate that you are very intentional about that. So I think we can start with today's program. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Mari Carmen Lara Villanueva, and I am the National LIP Secretariat Anti-Racism Coordinator. I am going to be co-hosting this event with Ruben. And again, this is the fifth installment of the Professional Development Series hosted by the National LIP Secretariat. This session was developed in critical consultation with members of members of different newcomer councils. They will introduce themselves in a moment, as well as we co-developed this session in critical consultation and collaboration with the NLS Anti-Racist Working Group. Many of the anti-racist working group members are going to be part of this session, and they will indeed be co-facilitating some of the breakout sessions that we'll have in the third component of the event. What else I wanted to say, if you have any questions regarding the French interpretation, please, you can send me a private message if you're having any challenges accessing that. And I think that's it. I'm going to pass it on to Ruben to introduce themselves. Ruben.
Hi, my name is Ruben. As you know, I work for the NLS and also for TNG TSLIP, and I am the anti-racism coordinator, and I'm glad to be here with you all today. Today we're trying some new things with our technology and our presentation style, and I'm excited to be with you today. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say about myself. So let's pass it back to you, Mayor Carmen, to introduce the rest of our team.
Thank you so much, Ruben. So like I said, a group of newcomer council members have been part of the planning of this session. So I just want to welcome them to introduce themselves. So if you can just quickly unmute yourself and just say your name and what lib you're representing. Maybe we can start with Nubia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nubia, and I am an Immigrant Advisory Council member with the North Shore Immigrant Inclusion Partnership.
Thank you, Nubia. Buki, are you around? Maybe he's not in here yet. Farhad.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, my camera is off today. It's not working. My name is Farhad Puri Mohammed. I come from Toronto and as part of York Region Council.
Thank you, Farhad, and welcome. Hakim? Are you here yet? Maybe no. What about Jones? I see you there.
Okay, hello, my name is Jones. I'm a member of the Youth Council, Newcomer Youth Council of Winnipeg, and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Jones. Anna?
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna, and I am representing today like a New Canadian Centre, Peterborough, Ontario. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Randy?
Hi, this is Randy. I work as for the Cultivating Partnership located in Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Randy. And Mohammed?
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Al-Wafai, and I'm joining from Victoria, BC with the Great Victoria Local Immigrant Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Did I call Iqbal? Yeah.
No.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, it's Iqbal Bhatti. I am from Alberta. High River is a small town, and I've been working with LIB plus FCIS here in High River. And I think it's been about 4 or 5 years since I've been working with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Iqbal. Am I missing anyone? I think I got everyone, but if I'm missing anyone, please unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry. Also just keeping my camera off. I think there's calls going around for everyone, but I'm Asa. I'm from the Toronto North Lib, and it's a pleasure to join you all today. And
Thank you, Asa.
Then, sorry, I'm the Settlement Project Manager at the Lib.
Thank you, Asta. Thanks for introducing yourself. We were doing the introductions of the newcomer council members. So we will now go over some housekeeping before we get started with the program. and then we'll just get started with Ruben's piece. So the format for today's session will start off with a very interactive presentation delivered by my colleague Ruben, and I'm really excited about that part. And then it will be followed by a presentation of our guest speaker, Kahsenniyo Williams, who is a spoken word artist, and she will be doing a presentation followed by a Q&A session. And then we will have a quick 5-minute break. And then when we come back from the break, we will engage in 4 different breakout room sessions, different themes, and they will be self-selective. So I shared the description of each breakout room yesterday. But if you did not get it, I will post it on the chat in just a few minutes. We have 4 different breakout sessions, and hopefully everybody will be able to join the one that is of most interest to each one of you. And then what else I wanted to say? So a few group agreements before we start. We ask you to be open, respectful, empathetic. We all join this session to learn and unlearn. So we hope that everyone understands that everyone comes to this space from different perspectives, and everyone is in a different place of the learning and unlearning spectrum. So be compassionate and be kind. We also want to encourage everyone to be present in the space as a sign of respect to the speakers and the presenters. And if you want to speak, please put up your hand with the icon. We also encourage everyone to use the chat function as much as you want. We hope that this space can be one where everyone can share, and that it becomes an interactive learning space as well. So feel free to use the chat in a respectful way, and engage with the speakers and engage with one another in ways that are meaningful and respectful. What else? I think that's it for me. And now I am going to invite Ruben to start his session. I'm really excited about this piece, Ruben. I know you've worked a lot to put this together, and I'm very, very grateful to the work that you've put together. So the floor is yours.
Hello again. Okay, I want to make an apology. I forgot one of the pieces of my land acknowledgement, and we're going to do it together. I want everybody to put in the chat something that they love about Turtle Island, something that they love about the earth. Because whenever I hear a land acknowledgement, I always remind myself to reflect on my relationship with the earth. So can we begin this conversation by putting how you feel about the earth in the chat? Let's flood it. Also, I want to tell you something else about me. I'm very new in this position, and while organizing and thinking about this event, every staff that I work with from the lips made it very clear that they have a wealth of knowledge. So my entire presentation, our entire flow is designed to really harness and use the knowledge of this entire group. That's why we're trying new tech, and I'm not really going to be sharing my screen directly, but talking in this way. So feel free to comment and add and to build together today. The theme for today is going to be building up energy and adding to the fire. And the way I see this chat today is going to be like a fire. And what we're going to do is for our conclusion, we're going to reflect on all the things that came up in the chat. So that's the first thing that I want to tell you. The second thing I want to tell you about is we're trying to experiment with our Zoom engagement style. So this presentation operates on many different levels. If you're someone who's, while you're on Zoom, you're often multitasking, we want to harness that multitasking energy and have you dancing with us in the chat. If you're someone who wants a show, then I will do my best to provide that. Fire alarms notwithstanding, you might hear those beeps, that's my fire alarm. And the third thing that we're going to do is I'm also going to be sharing some of my favorite interactive links as it relates, and resources as it relates to doing this work. So I'll be putting those in the chat too. And okay, so those are the housekeeping pieces. So because we just have so much knowledge. All right, so now to begin, I'm going to start this timer because I got 20 minutes. Okay, so here we go. First thing that I want to say is this. I'm going to present a story, and each scene in my story will have some story. Then it's going to have a question for the chat that I want us to discuss, and then I'm going to share a resource. And while I'm sharing the resource, the chat's going to be going. So the background for this story, I learned from somebody. I think it was from my friend named Lance. He said that whenever his people, Keys Cree, share knowledge, they always say where they get their knowledge from. So this story that I'm about to tell is a combination of a story that I heard from an what, from from his name is Jay. He's from Alberta. He's an MC and a land defender from Alberta. He came to speak to a youth group that I was running back then, and in the room it was me and a bunch of youth. There were no white people in the room. We were all of like a rainbow, and we were really feeling proud of ourselves that we were doing this good volunteer work and we're working with an Indigenous person. We felt so good about ourselves. And in the meeting, he was like mad at us, and I couldn't understand. And like he didn't directly say he was mad at us, but the energy was like. And he made a comment. He said like it's frustrating to him that the government seems to care more about you newcomers than us who've been here. And he told this story about a house party. And I carried that story and I've taken pieces of that story that he told me and I've added to it a framework written that a framework that I read in a book from Leanne Simpson called Lighting the Eighth Fire. So this story that I'm about to present is a combination of a story from Jay and the wisdom from this book called Lighting the Eighth Fire. Okay, so those are all the beginning pieces you need to know. All right, jumping in now. I'm turning on my words and I'm going to make my words bigger. Okay, so the first scene in our story begins with, I apologize if it's not as smooth as I wanted it to be. It's not going to be as smooth. I appreciate your understanding. Okay, picture Turtle Island. I know it's just black as a grand ancient house. The original peoples, the first peoples, the indigenous peoples, have been living here since time immemorial, caring for the land and each other in a web of relationships. And because all of the different peoples and they're all different nations, and they would get together and collaborate and party. And so there are all these various parties happening all over this house, this land of Turtle Island. Okay, so that's the first scene of the story, right? And the question that I want to ask you all, the questions aren't exactly thematically linked, but I want to start with the best question, or yeah. Wait, the first question I want to ask everyone, sorry, is what will you bring to this conversation today? Because today, we're gathered here today to talk about how we can be good allies, how we can be good treaty people, how we can help advance the work of reconciliation because we care. So I'm asking you all, what brought you to this work? What brought you to this land? And what brought you to this meeting? Please put that in the chat as well, because I think oftentimes we go to these meetings expecting to take, not realizing that we come to these meetings with a lot to give. So yeah, and I'm here in this work because I've been inspired by that story that Jay told me. Okay, so now we're here now. My apologies. Now we are here. Here is the other question. Are you interested in decolonizing your relationships with the land and indigenous nations? Why or why not? That is the first question that I'm asking us all. How do you feel about decolonization? How do you think about decolonization? It's a word that's used a lot, a word that's not always understood, but please put your thoughts in the chat there. And the resource that I want to share is a site called nativeland.ca. Now, I'm not going to try to get too fancy with the screen sharing in this moment because I'm already having too many technical difficulties, but I put it in the chat. Nativeland.ca. If you go to that site, it shows Turtle Island and all of the earth, not by the political relationships in terms of like the UN, but by the indigenous peoples. It highlights the languages, highlights the peoples. And when you look at Turtle Island, you'll be surprised to see the amount of different colors, the amount of different peoples. It's staggering to me. Like when I zoom out and I can barely process it. So I want somebody to help this dance out and click on that link and tell me what you see and tell me how you feel about it. And also, if you go to that site, there's also an app. There's even an app that outlines all of the different peoples of Earth and of Turtle Island. Okay, how's the chat doing? Okay, I'm not supposed to be watching chat. I'm supposed to be keeping going. Okay, so I'm going to continue on in our story. And the next part of our story, the next scene in our story is called The Uninvited Guests and the Great Betrayal. So now you know the people of Turtle Island were having all these various parties amongst themselves. And one day, a group of uninvited guests, let's call them the first newcomers or colonizers, arrive. And after some time, agreements are made, and these newcomers are allowed to share the life of the land. And this is where the term Canada comes. And in terms, and the agreement that was made to share in the land and to be good together and have a good party is our metaphor for what it means to be a good treaty person. Because in the house, there were rules, there were agreements that were made between the new people and the people who, and the first people, as to how they were going to get along together in Turtle Island. However, not only did these first newcomers betray their host by trying to take over the house, they didn't, and pushing the original inhabitants into the metaphorical basement, but they also betrayed their relationship to our Mother Earth by exploiting her resources. Now, my question to you is, how do you envision good nation-to-nation relationships looking? And what are some key elements of that? Today, we're mostly here to focus on what we can do and what we want to do, right? I want to see aspirational goals. I want to see tips. I want to see hot things in the fire. So that's my second question. How do you envision good nation-to-nation relations looking? And my resource, because some of my wise friends are going to tell me that not everywhere in Canada is actually under treaty, and that's 100% true. So this link I'm putting into the chat next is a link that goes over all of the various treaties that relate to Canada specifically. So if you want to see or you want to get more specific information about this, then that's the link for you. Mary Carmen, how's the chat doing? What's going on? I want to check with the energy of my people. How are we doing?
The chat is going well. I will encourage people to don't be shy. There are no wrong answers. So try to engage in ways that feel meaningful. But yeah, don't be shy.
I'm going to shout
Keep
out Doug
going.
right now. Doug does something dope. He said a collaboration of equal partners with no sectors or issue off limits. And I really do feel like, especially for the breakout rooms today, there are no bad questions. Like if you have a question, find a way to ask your question respectfully so you can walk away with the answer. Do you know what I mean? Like how are we going to get together if we don't talk? Okay, Serna, your hand is up. You can have the floor.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Go in.
You're asking a lot of great questions. It's taking me time to sit with them. So if you're not seeing stuff in chat, I think people potentially, as I am, are trying to, like dig deep to get the answers to your question. Like your first question was what brought you here or what allowed you to be here? And yeah, like these are big questions.
Yes. Okay, so I'll say something else. We will be sending out all of our questions and all of the resources after. So don't worry. We're throwing out a lot. What sticks, sticks. If you have a big thought and you want to bring it to, we're really trying to just get us inspired for the breakout room. So if you can't get to everything, that's okay. I know I'm going quickly. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going though, because my time is pressing on me. You see that? Okay. So we talked about the basement. No, we did not. Now, okay, so now we're gonna talk. So the original people were now confined in the basement, struggle with limited resources like dirty water, and they're drilling all over the house. The people who've taken over and now calling this party Canada have invited their own friends over, and their own friends that come over now don't know nothing about the people in the basement, and it's really a hot mess. You can hear laughter going on upstairs, and the people downstairs, they do break out, and they have been trying to make noise, but the DJs of Canada have been playing the music too loud to distract. So there's a lot going on over there. And this is the part of the story really that Jay said to me, like he really hammered hammer home this idea that like he was feeling like Canada had him in the basement, and everyone just partying. And even though us newcomers, myself and the youth in the room, didn't do anything to put him to create the situation, because we joined the party that was already oppressive, he didn't feel like we were his friends. And he was right. He was like, you didn't come to this party for me. You came to the party anyway. Okay, so my question is, how can we as lips help to dismantle systems of oppression and colonization that perpetuate inequity and injustice? And I frame it like this, as lips, because I know as much as lips can do a lot, a lip can't do everything, and it's unfair to expect this institution to do all the work. But what can we do? What are we doing? And how are we doing around these, right? Because I think we all want to create a beautiful world. So that's my next question. And my next resource, pardon? Put it back up?
Repeat the
I'll
question.
put it back up. Yeah, 100%. How can we as lips, and I say how, and I don't mean rhetorical. I mean, like, what are you doing? Because a lot of you in this room have done beautiful things. I don't know what you've done, but you know you've done beautiful things. What can we do? What are we doing? Like, what does dismantling systems of oppression actually look like? We talk about it, we sing about it, we rap about it, but what does it look like? What are you doing? What can you do? What do you wish you could do? We're not going to hold you accountable in the chat. You don't have, but we like you know, but I want ideas, I want aspirations, I want stories, because there are people who will be reading what you say that will be inspired to take your thoughts to carry on into their work. So what can we do? How are we doing it? The question is around dismantling systems of oppression. Okay. And the resource that we have here is about truth. We're talking about the basement. It is the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. That link is in the chat now. If you want, and I'm putting these links in the chat. If you feel like you want to go in a rabbit hole down one of these links, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you doing whatever you need to do. So that's that. Okay, so let's keep it moving. Next part of my story is about resurgence. These original people, some call them land defenders, some call them Turtle Island antibodies, have been working tirelessly to reclaim their rightful place in the house and to restore balance in Mother Earth, right? There's the people who were there before are still in the house, and they're working very hard to try to restore balance. And my question for this is, what does the word resurgence mean to you? And I have a story to tell. I'm still in school now. I read this book called Reconciliation and Resurgence, and I was really excited about it because it was good. And I called my friend Lance, who I told you about, and said, I'm reading this book about reconciliation. Have you read it? Lance said, no, I'd never read a book like that. And I said, why? He said, I'm Cree. Reconciliation is settler work. It's not my work. And my work is resurgence. And there's a difference between that. And I just wanted to bring that up as a real thing and ask you all about if you've thought about it, if you've heard about it, and like, yeah. Okay. And the resource for this is obviously placing that in the chat too. Has anyone heard of Grassy Narrows and the protest happening tomorrow? Anybody aware of it? If you do want to talk, yeah? 2 people?
The rally is happening in Toronto only.
That's right. It's only in Toronto. Well, okay. Well, there have been rallies around these issues, around land defense, around support that happen all over. And I guess a conversation that I wanted to have with the lips is like, what is our role in that? How do we think about that? I know that my lip is going to support, which I think is cool and kind of groundbreaking in a way, but I just wanted to put that on the table and to say that like there's been a lot of work being done around, okay, keeping it moving. Story piece 5. So now there are newcomers. The new newcomers are invited to this party called Canada, and they're unaware of the people who actually were in the house before. But they join the celebrations upstairs, and they contribute to the diversity of this new party called Canada. And my question is around, being a newcomer. And the question is, how do you and how do we educate ourselves about the land you live on and its history? And for this, I want to shout out all of the newcomer guides to Indigenous peoples that have been popping up by cities and by different organizations across Canada. I think we have a breakout room dedicated to the development of one of them. So if you're interested in these newcomer guides, then you could go check that out. They answer almost every question that you could conceivably have about a specific territory and the specific people of those territories. And a lot of the information that I got for this came from some newcomer guides. So yeah, gonna keep moving in my story, and I'm almost done. Okay, part 6, the prophecy of the 8th fire. Has anyone heard of the 7 fire prophecy? Okay, there, it's really cool. Y'all should look at. Okay, so there's, you haven't heard of it? Yes, in the chat. Can I get some yeses, some no's? What's up?
No?
Okay, so basically, for several centuries, prophets have been coming to specifically the Anishinaabe people, I think, and they've been telling them stories about what was going to happen in the future, and they were telling them warnings about what to do. They warned about colonization. They warned about all these things, and they said if you choose wrong, if you go the wrong path, then things are going to get very difficult on Turtle Island, for your people, and also for the entire Earth. But they said that if there's a possibility at the 8th fire that there'd be a new people coming up, and no, those new people aren't us. These new people are people of the land who are going to be reinvigorated to try to turn things around and to rebuild harmony. And the book that I read, The 8th Fire, is about supporting that movement. So yeah, it's kind of like a potential happy ending to the the prophecy. But I'm going to read my story text. My story text says, what if this party that we're calling Canada, where we came, myself included, unknowing of the situation, what if this party could be transformed from what it currently is, where we got some people dancing now nice and some people in the basement? What if we could change it so that there was harmony? What if this 8th fire that has been talked about could be lit? And what my question is, would that good party look like? What if we could help restore balance? How would the party of Turtle Island look, and what would we do as LIPS? And my question is, what could we as LIPS do to continue to align with the principles of the 8th fire? And those principles are, I've kind of hinted at them, but they relate to respecting Indigenous peoples and rebuilding connections from nation to nation. But really, this book, I'll tell you 100%, was not written for settlers. It was a book written by Leanne Simpson talking to her people about what they need to do. And I was reading the book thinking about how we as LIPS and how me as a newcomer could fit in. But I guess I'm asking, like, how do we fit in? And I asked this question here, and it's a bit redundant in the sense that I'm assuming the conversation in the chat's already rolling, and this question is like a continual question of like, what else can we do? Yeah. Okay, so you should get songs to choose from. Like, okay, what kind of songs would be on a playlist where we're having this party that we're talking about? Here we are. Nope. And this is the picture of the book. That's how I wanted to end. Okay, so I am actually at my time. I've made my time. Thank you for listening. Yeah. Put his face back on. Oh, there he is. Mary Carmen, I think I'm done.
Thank you so much, Ruben. It feels like you've asked a number of really big questions as people have shared. There are a lot of really important comments and reflections shared on the chat. I like to try new things when I host events. And I think sometimes from trying new things, you also learn what are some of the things that work, what are some of the things that could work better. I feel like there's so much happening in the chat in terms of the conversation that's happening. And some of the questions that you asked, I think perhaps we could open the floor for people who may want to share reflections or who have put things on the chat and who may want to expand on their questions or the comments in the chat, maybe we can open the floor for that. What do you think, Ruben? Or for questions. So if anyone has questions or reflections that you would like to share, please feel free to put up your hand, and the floor is yours. I really like the analogies that you share. And Ruben, often, for those of you who know Ruben, he always uses analogies. And I find it very helpful in that it allows me to understand some of the very complex processes that we're trying to grapple with in ways that are a lot easier to just understand and see, I guess, from a different perspective. Since this is Truth and Reconciliation Week, I think this conversation not only is timely, but it's also urgent. So I think it's a good time to open the floor for questions or any reflections or comments that you want to share.
Okay, before we open the floor, let me say one thing real quick to land the plane in terms of the metaphor. What I take away from this metaphor is just to be cautious and be aware of what party I'm participating in terms of my involvement in Canada, right? Because Canada began as an idea of collaboration between nations and creating a beautiful world, right? And it veered away from that. And I'm always reminded that when I'm participating in Canada as a citizen of Canada, to remember like that, to remember the historical piece around it, and also like how my engagement with this affects the people who were here before. You know what I mean? So yeah, okay.
Absolutely, and I let Doug talk, but I also just want to say, as an extension of what you're saying, is to recognize the ways in which we are complicit with the project, with the settlement project, right? And I think the only way to not be complicit is to take actions against that. And there are many ways, and hopefully some of the conversations that we'll have in the breakout sessions will discuss some of those actions that can be taken. I'm gonna let Doug speak, and then we're gonna go with Iqbal.
Thanks very much. Thanks to both of you. And you know, I just echo what Mary Carmen was saying there about Ruben's incredible ability to craft a metaphor, to find kind of deep expression through metaphor. But with that in mind, I'm going to torture the metaphor a little bit, so apologies in advance. I just wanted to introduce some level of complexity when we talk about this party, and we talk about the waves of new guests, of the newcomers arriving at the party. And I just want to kind of maybe suggest that as newcomers are coming into the party, they're not always getting access to the top floors, you know, and there's connection between the people who are arriving late to the party and the basement that maybe doesn't exist between the top floor and the basement. And so there's some complexity of connection and commonality of different groups of people who might be in the party, but not invited to the roped off area, you know, not having access to every room in the house. So I just want to recognize that, because when we talk about this complexity, I think there's a lot of complexity and interesting areas for growth when we talk about how resurgence and settlement are going to sit together. We need to recognize all of these complexities and these connections that don't exist necessarily between all players and all participants in the party.
I agree with you 1,000%. That's kind of why I left so much space for the chat, because I'm very aware that, I agree.
If I can just add to Doug's point, I think it's so important that, first of all, that we recognize that Indigenous resistance began in 1942. Indigenous organizing, Indigenous activism is not new. And also to recognize that, just like Doug's saying, the way in which Indigenous communities and land defenders, for instance, in the Global South, have been impacted by Canadian mining. And that's something that we often don't think enough about, how migration is impacted and informed by that expansion of empire, and how, you know, the idea that we did not cross the border, but the border crossed us, right? And the implications for that as well. I think there needs to be a bigger conversation about global South and global North implications and the politics of that as well. Thank you for that, Doug. Iqbal.
Thank you very much. And Ruben, thank you very much for the metaphors and the story that you shared with us. As a matter of fact, this is how I take it, that these were all thought-provoking questions. And wouldn't have been a good idea if there would have been more time for those thoughts, those questions to ponder over, because it's not easy to reflect on those questions and see where we are and where we are supposed to be and how could we help the other guests who are trying to get in. So in summary, it was too short. What do you think, Ruben?
I was rushing 100%. I see that. I apologize. Yeah, I take that. But I think these questions are questions that I carry with me all the time. Like we weren't going to answer them in 2 hours either, anyways. But I'm hoping we can have more of the discussions, not as in the bigger groups, but in the smaller groups as well. I hope they will continue with us. They were more gifts than they were. Yeah, but you're right. Tina or Iqbal, do you want to say anything else?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you, Iqbal. Tina, please go ahead.
Thank you. Just wanted to jump in to say that, Ruben, you're an amazing, amazing storyteller, and you've left us all wanting for more. These questions, these reflections, the amazing dialogue that's going on in the chat, these are all, I think, a full day Prodi. They merit a full day Prodi. So this is, you've opened a space. I agree with Iqbal that we would have all wanted more. We would have wanted longer stories and longer piece around reflection. But having said that, really, really grateful that you created this space. Right now, we are at different points in our journey of understanding truth and reconciliation. So thank you for, setting us on that path further of, reflecting, of a curiosity, of investigation, and also walking away knowing that there is so much work that needs to be done. So just wanted to take a moment to, say that. Thanks.
I appreciate that very much. In space of time, that's all. I'm gonna thank you. Let's move on. Anyone else? Thank you though.
Thank you, Tina.
Okay, I'm reading this. Oh, there's another hand. You see a hand?
Okay. No, go ahead, Ruben.
Oh, I was going to read something from the chat. I saw something from the chat that would look interesting. It said, "We don't want the floors. We want diversity and difference and curiosity and appreciation and respect. I don't want to be on the top floor or even on the higher floors because that means there has to be lower floors where others suffer. We want to disrupt the floor narrative." Yeah. You're okay. I'm into that. Yeah, Mayor Carmen, I think this is all the time we have for our segment, right? We gotta move to the next part of the show.
Sure.
Is that where we're at?
I think so. So again, everyone, thank you so much for all your questions and your reflections. I think this first section allows us to think about the ways in which we are the beneficiaries of an illegal settlement and also the unjust appropriation of resources of Indigenous land. So that's something that I want to keep in mind throughout the session as we move on to the next piece.
I have good news. I have good news and bad news. The good news is we have 12 more minutes for the segment. Yeah, so
okay, is that because our
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So,
our speaker is
yeah. So
okay.
Is there any specific parts that we want to give more time to, because we have 10 more minutes? It's still not going to be enough. I love y'all, but
I actually want to read Zerna's comment. In Quran, God says, "I have created you as nations so that you may know each other." And she's paraphrasing. That speaks to me of the sentiment behind the two-row wampum belt, two nations moving down the river in two separate canoes, respectfully separate, knowing each other, not being each other, not dominating each other. That's beautiful, Serna. Thank you so much for sharing that. I also love when people are able to recognize the connections between different spiritualities and social justice. And there's a really big and important piece there that I think we often don't talk about, but spirituality is really important in pursuing social justice in general. So thank you for that, Serna. Ruben?
Since you know what, do you want to talk about the breakout rooms and give each of the facilitators a chance to introduce themselves to the group so that we can get an idea of the breadth and scope of the conversations that await? How does that sound?
I think we can do that if our facilitators are okay with that. Yeah, so just as a reminder, we have 4 different breakout rooms. Each breakout room will have a co-facilitator, a facilitator, and the different themes are, I have my notes here somewhere in just a second, but the first, the first breakout room is Cultivating Community Through Cultural Exchange, which will be facilitated by our NLS Anti-Racism Working Group member, Elmira, from South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services. And Elmira, I don't know if, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you want to maybe share a few words about your breakout room?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. So nice to see familiar faces and not so familiar yet. Of course, I'm not an expert in any of that, but in my session, I just wanted to share what our local immigration partnership does in partnership, actually collaborating with the host agency to bring the Indigenous learning to the newcomer community. And yeah, I wanted to share a few ideas, and maybe you'll have some questions for me. We can talk about how it could be implemented maybe in your lips, or how it could be enhanced. One of the things we did, as many of you probably, is a welcome guide. And it's not specific welcome guide on just educating people about the Indigenous culture, but it's basically a mix. It's a regular welcome guide that we all develop for newcomers, listing different resources, how to settle in your new home. But every part of it is intertwined with the Indigenous story. So if we talk about health, we're using a story from our Silk people on their health and what they view as important factors for health, and so on. So yeah, I would be happy to share. Hope to see you there. Thanks.
Elmira, room number 2 is the blanket exercise and relationship building outside the box by Kimo, who is the local immigration partnership coordinator at Lloydminster.
So yes, I'll be facilitating that, and it's going to be similar to what Amira said. It's a discussion, and I'll give you how I came about to do the blanket exercise and the impact the blanket exercise have had in the community, not only with immigrants, but the general population as well. And how did I start funding the blanket exercise? And where are we now with IRCC actually funding that for the past 5 years on a yearly basis? What I did to get to that point and how did I do that? And I'll take questions and my relationship with the Native Friendship Center and the Heart of Treaty 6 that is also doing a lot of activities in Lloydminster here. So we'll have some of those discussions, and then I'll take questions and explain how I have actually included that as part of fulfilling some of the calls to action, TRC, I think 93 and 94, which some of the things each and every lead can take in the furtherance of the work of the TRC.
Thank you so much, Kimo. And Tina will be facilitating room number 3, which is the Surrey First Peoples Guide for Newcomers and Other Resources, facilitated by Tina from the Surrey Local Immigration Partnership.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Mary Carmen and NLS for creating this space and giving me this opportunity to share about the amazing work that has been done. It's a beautiful legacy that I inherited. At the Surrey Local Immigration Partnership, we were instrumental in creating an educational resource, which is titled the Surrey First Peoples Guide for Newcomers. And this guidebook was created in consultation with Indigenous elders. The idea of this resource is to create an understanding from an Indigenous perspective of the land, of the protocol, of the people. And one of the key things about this piece that I will be sharing in the breakout soon is that it's a community resource. There is a training attached to it. And the idea of the community resource is that community champions in the community, whether it's the newcomer champions, whether it's our lib coordinators, frontline workers in the settlement sector, community champions, they take the training and they further take the training forward and the learnings forward and facilitate sessions for their peers. So taking the learnings and the knowledge forward. So that's what I will be sharing about the idea behind this guidebook, the lessons and the modules in it, how we came about doing this in consultation with the Indigenous elders and the nations around Surrey. And as well as the part 2 of it would be the Truth and Reconciliation events that we are hosting right now. As a series of events, we are doing one, the training, and part 2, so in truth, we are doing the training pieces around the Surrey First Peoples Guide for Newcomers. And as reconciliation piece, we are doing Stories of the Land, a gathering space that we've created with Indigenous elders in the community who will be coming and sharing their stories, as well as immigrants who will share their stories of bridging the learnings. So looking forward to the session later.
Thank you so much, Tina, and thank you, Elmira and Kimo. I just want to say that you have been so generous in sharing not only your expertise, but also your knowledge, best practices, and resources. So I'm really excited about these breakout sessions. I will be facilitating the 4th room, which will be on activism. Oftentimes we forget that anti-racism is anchored in activism. And so it's important if we want to engage in various anti-racist projects that we think about different ways of bringing activism to it. And sometimes we are scared of the word activism, but there are so many ways in which we can engage in day-to-day on the ground, small acts of resistance and solidarity. And hopefully that breakout session, the breakout room will have that opportunity to share best practices, resources, and to do and not to do when it comes to activism. So I think our guest speaker is here. So Ruben, if you wanted to take the floor to introduce her, if you're ready. I think you're muted, Ruben. You're muted.
So before I do the introduction, I want part of the introduction was while when we met with Kahsenniyo to talk about this event, I asked because the event was titled "How to Be a Good Ally, How to Be a Good Treaty Person." What advice did she have for the group? And she looked at the question a bit like, we don't really use that word. We talk about friendship, and we talk about people who help us do actual things. So it challenged me to reconceptualize the way I use the term ally. Ally is no longer in my mind a thing you call yourself. Like, you don't call yourself, I'm a good friend. A good friend to who? You know, the word allyship should always relate to connection and not just a positionality or even an intellectual position. If you think you're doing something, if there's nobody in the world that says you're doing it with them, then you know what I mean? Like, you can't be friends by yourself. You need people to connect with. So that really changed my perspective on the term that I think is very important. I'm going to read the bio, but I'm also going to share the bio because I don't read very good out loud and I don't want to disrespect my friend. So I'm going to do both. But Kahsenniyo Williams is part of the Mohawk Nation, Wolf Clan, and Six Nations territories. Her personal story is one of great struggle and triumph. She has lived and experienced almost every statistic and stereotype about First Nations people. Through the magic of poetry and hard work, she has been working tirelessly to break the cycles for herself and for her community. As an artist, these personal experiences have molded her. She began utilizing her poetry as a tool for social change and community engagement in 2008. Her work is focused around the Indigenous people of Turtle Island, North America, and it aims to educate non-Indigenous people as well as create moments of healing and understanding for Indigenous people. As new opportunities begin presenting themselves in 2009, Kahsenniyo began developing and facilitating workshops. She has delivered hundreds of workshops over the years to a variety of audiences. In 2013, Kahsenniyo began offering curriculum development services. She draws on her experience over a decade of working with communities and young people to craft exciting, engaging, and educational workshops and curriculums. Kahsenniyo was the selected artist in residence for the East Common Writer in Residence. She continues to engage audiences and is currently working on publishing a collection of poetry. In addition to all that we've said, she is much more, and I'm glad to give her the floor.
Kahsenniyo ni Waxanodo, Gariagahaga, Dahno, Wagatiahuni, ni Wagahonjote, Dahno Oswego Tikiro, Gohiguanji Wagatanuni, Jigan Iges, Dahno Izewes, Ne Eji, Yorlihuana, Ne Gonto. Hello, everyone. My name is Kahsenniyo. It's actually Kahsenniyo Kick. And yeah, I said, I just introduced myself in the language, in the Mohawk language, Kanegeha, and said that I'm from the Mohawk Nation Wolf Clan, and I come from Oswego, which is the largest populated reserve in Canada. And we're located about an hour and change from Toronto in Ontario. I had also said that I'm really happy to be here with you all today, and I'm happy that you all are here because it is your lihuana, like it's important business that we're tending to today. So I also want to take a second and thank you all for being here today, and to thank the organizers for asking me to be here and share space with y'all. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do just like a little bit more of an introduction of myself, just so that you guys can kind of understand basically better like the work that I do, and a little bit more of who I am. And then we're gonna do some poems. And then with the poems, I'm gonna like tell some stories and kind of like preamble each poem. And then after each poem, there'll be a chance for like questions, comments, discussion. And rather than kind of doing like the Q&A after, we're gonna do it kind of like simultaneously as I do each poem. So hopefully that's good.
Remind them that you said you're cool people talking in the chat while you're talking, and that we'll be monitoring the chat, or something like that.
Yes. So if like as I'm performing, you want to like acknowledge something, a line that I said, if you want to clap, if you want to ask a question or anything like that, please feel free to like blow up the chat kind of as the performance is happening. And then at the end of each poem, then we'll kind of go through the chat and kind of see what folks are saying, and also answer any questions or anything like that that y'all have as we're going. So I am a mother. I was a teen mom. I had my first daughter at 15 and my second daughter at 16. So I have been a mom all of my life, pretty much. And I have two amazing, beautiful, just brilliant young Mohawk daughters of mine. I'm an artist. I've been doing art basically since I was 18 years old. I started off performing because I was doing a lot of activism work. So I was being asked to like speak at these different universities, these different panels, all of this different kind of stuff. And then I performed at my first open mic and I booked 5 shows off of that open mic. And that was like almost 17 years ago. And I've been performing ever since then, and kind of realized that it made more sense to perform my poems rather than like writing new lectures every time I was asked to speak somewhere. I have been involved in frontline Indigenous movements since I was about 16. And so kind of like pushing back against theft of Indigenous land, my people's land specifically, is definitely something that I've been very involved in throughout my life. I also used to run a land-based cultural youth program in my community on my property, where we would follow the 13 moon cycles, and take the kids out on the land and actually show them their responsibilities to the land for each moon cycle. Because for us, the moon tells us what we're supposed to do and when. And so rather than just kind of being like, oh, during this moon, you would tap trees, and during this moon, you would pick strawberries, like we would actually take the kids out onto the land to show them how to fulfill their responsibilities to the land. So I did that for quite a number of years. And I also have been a unofficial social worker. And when I used to run the only youth residential mental health facility on reserve in the entire country. So my community is very, very fortunate to be able to have such a place where kids could come and receive residential mental health treatment from a traditional lens in their own territory. So I did that for a hot minute. And yeah, art has always been a way for me to not be silent. I think dealing with the things that I deal with as an Indigenous woman, it is really easy to feel silent. And for me, art has always been a way to not be silent and to put voice to some of the burdens that that I carry, that my people carry. And so I do the poetry thing. In the last few years, I have also started doing other forms of art, which has been really amazing to be able to focus on Indigenous joy. Because it's really easy to get caught up in the trauma of it, in the heaviness of it, and so definitely in a place where really wanting to explore and share Indigenous joy, and yeah, I'm also an aspiring lawyer. Through the work that I've done with frontline activism, I just kind of naturally fell into like taking charge of like the legal aspect of things and like supporting communities with you know, making sure people don't go to jail, and when they do go to jail, like how do we mitigate that, how do we strategize around that, how do we deal with injunctions, and so I'm currently studying to take the LSATs, and yeah, excited to kind of embark on that journey. But not really though. I'm so sick of studying. I'm over it. Okay. So that's me. I'm gonna jump into some poems now. So this first poem that I'm gonna do is called Mohawk. And my hair is flat down today. But as every good poet, you know, you have to have a poem about your hair. And so I had the Mohawk haircut for well over a decade. And when I was a kid, we would, I was a kid, but I was a teenage mom. So I had my own apartment, but I was also like about the revolution, about community. And so my place was a place that everyone would come and we would sit and we would talk about, you know, the issues that our communities are facing, and how do we solve these issues, and, you know, how do we move things forward politically. And so my house was the house that we would come and do that at. And I remember one time we're all sitting around together, you know, discussing, and someone was like, hey, I wonder why we had the Mohawk haircut. And, you know, there was this idea that as a people, there's nothing that we did that wasn't without purpose. And so if we're known for this haircut, there has to be a reason why, right? We're not just frivolous in the things of life. And so that was kind of everyone's assignment for that week, was to like go and talk to some elders, chat around with some people to figure out why we cut our hair like that. And what came back, this one guy comes and he's like, yeah, I was talking to that old guy, and what he said was that the Mohawk haircut was used as a sign of war, and that when our men would go to war, they would come back and they would get this haircut, but it was to indicate to everybody in the village that they're grieving, because actually war and the aftermath of war is actually about grief. And so the men would have this haircut so that people would know to be extra gentle with them, so that people would know that they needed extra tending to, extra love, extra support. And so it's this interesting thing being Indigenous in Canada, because there is often this idea that we're advancing truth and reconciliation so much. We're telling the truth. We're progressing so much that, like, it's almost this era of, like, it's not an issue anymore, guys. Like, we, from the government, kind of like what they're putting out is very much that, like, we've dealt with this. And I can tell you that as a law and policy nerd, there's more pieces of legislation currently on the docket that limit, control, mitigate Indigenous lives, lands, resources, ability to raise our children the way that we want to, more than at any point in history. There's currently more legislation. And so there's this, I think, for me, this kind of like silent war that's going on between Canada and the Indigenous people that's still very, very active today. Because as an Indigenous woman, my ability to be who I am is fundamentally connected to my ability to access my land. So I can't be Indigenous, I can't be Mohawk if my ability to go tap those trees for maple, to go pick those medicines, to go make sure that the water is clean, like all of these things is actually what it means to be Indigenous. And there are more pieces of legislation that limit, restrict, and mitigate my ability to do that than ever before. And so this is kind of a poem about that. I rock this mohawk because I'm a warrior. And we don't fight with Glocks, and it ain't only those with jocks that rocks the battlefields. And as my pretty pink polished toes hit the ground of the war zone, I realize that I am home. I wake up every morning and I step out onto this battlefield of life. My only weapon device is my arrows of knowledge. And we don't have to go to college to know that they're dropping bombs of oppression, igniting grenades to our dreams. They got us tiptoeing through the schemes that's messed up, and it seems they got us hiding from our own dreams. And I need a moment of silence. It's deafening, and that's my people's screams. It's like there's landmines planted at our feet so we can't speak. So consumed in oppression, we retreat, and we drown in our own defeat. But we don't rock suits to prove our roots. So I'll be standing in front of you comfortably naked, with only my spirit unclothed, my history exposed, constantly in warrior mode. I'm gonna be armed with a mouthful of ammo, spitting arrows to your ears, and the more I spit, the more you fear. My pledges to the great law, and I wish you could have saw the look of shame as my own people, a part of the game, got their finger on the grenade. It's like there's a barrel to my chest wanting me to join the best. They want me colonized, trying to get me hypnotized by the lies. But all I can hear is the coming generation's cries. And I gotta be honest with you, that your policies of Glocks, cops, and smallpox will never knock the truth as it slips from my lips and the tears drip. You can't kick the spirit out of me. It exists through my body indefinitely. And it flows through my body like the sea's breeze, bringing people to their knees, thinking of the coming seas. So I'll rock this mohawk without a Glock. Hate for myself, I gotta stop. And I'll be spitting arrows. Go ahead and look at me as Pharaoh, because I'm deaf to your lies, occupied by the coming generation's cries. A word to the wise, I'm going to advise that y'all just mission abort because this fort is on lockdown. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I said a lot.
Where do you want to start breaking that one down?
I think I just maybe want to like open it up if there's like one of two things happen every time I perform. Either people are just like, I need to process this. I need to think about this. Or they're like, oh my God, I have all of these things to say. There's usually no in between. And so if folks just need to process it, we can like come back and do that if nobody has any kind of questions or comments.
Go ahead. Go in. There's a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, my question is, I just wanted to know, every time you say this poem, it's so loaded, and how do you reflect into it? How do you see yourself, and how do you imagine as you say this? You created it, and you have said it maybe one or two times, and how does that impact you personally?
Good question. I feel like I'm fortunate enough to have enough kind of control over my life to be able to do it in ways that feel good. The truth of the matter is, like, if I don't say these poems, it like sits in my body, it sits in my heart, it sits in my throat. And so for me, it's as much about being able to like release as it is about being able to like educate and kind of share. So yeah.
Thank you so much, and it's wonderful. It's really wonderful performance.
Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna jump. Oh,
I think we have another question by Surna.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the cries of the next generation. In your poem, that stood out for me. Can you tell us, where do you hear that? Like, what, just, you know, like, yeah, anything that comes to mind.
So one of the things people talk about, this whole idea of 7 generations, everybody kind of, I think, you know, there's been enough like education and sharing that like this idea of 7 generations is in different ways, like all nations are different. But this idea that like we do things thinking about not just ourselves, but many generations down the road. And so we talk about that, but one of the things that I like to talk about is that, and what I tell Indigenous youth is that means that you were prayed into existence. That means that your ancestors sat around fires, putting medicine into the fire, wishing and praying for your presence in this world. And we don't often talk about that side of the like 7 generation teaching. And I know that this is true because I sit with women in my community around full moon time. And that's what we do, is we like pray for the young people and the generations that are to come. And so everything that your ancestors have been done in a way with you at the forefront of their mind. I think that's a really powerful message to be able to share with young people, especially when our communities are dealing with addiction, homelessness, family violence, suicide, mental health. All of these things that our communities are facing are a direct result of colonization. They are the symptoms of assimilation. They are the symptoms of attempted genocide against us. And so it's this like constant kind of back and forth between like acknowledging that, but not being stuck in it and not being victim to it.
Thank you. Thank you. That speaks to me in many ways. It's beautiful. Yeah. The despair, like it's not, the despair doesn't overcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's there, but it doesn't take over.
Yes.
So, thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. I'm going to jump into my next poem. This poem is called Mouth of the River. In Haudenosaunee culture, where I come from, the land and the women are the same. The land, the women, the queer people, all have that same kind of like feminine, life-giving energy to them. And the water specifically, because we need water in order to survive. And like, we are also made of water. And like, so in Haudenosaunee culture, like water, moon, women, and queer folks are all of the same kind of essence. And this is kind of a poem, this is a poem about that. You, my dear, are the mouth of the river, portal to another world. You are bone and tongue, hands and spine. You carry secrets that will change the world. But they want to fill you with greed. Open up your belly to let out hurricanes. They want to tame you. Place sandbags at your banks to avoid flood, cleansing. And they will pick and choose which parts of you they want because they want you underground, not building nations. They want you hungry, desperate. They want to be in your mouth. They want to make your body a home. But you, my dear, are the mouth of the river, portal to another world. You are bone and tongue, hands and spine. You carry secrets that will change the world. So let them out. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna hop into the next poem. Thank you. This poem is called Buried. Yeah, I'm just gonna do the poem. Canadians wonder why it seems like we can't pick ourselves up, dust off the dirt. Let me tell you, we are still being buried. still covered in the ashes of our burning homes, broken tongues, still trying to find our children, still loving them. And we never learned how to put out the fire. We only seem to waft the flames. We are still being buried. And the trucks, they keep coming. I ask them to stop. They never listen to me. I tell them they are taking pieces of me. They only smile, wave at the onlookers, and continue. And there are buildings tall, made of stone, with maps of my body. Men huddle around to look, break apart, reassemble. They expect silence, compliance, but it gets messy and loud, so I send my daughters to the river to wait. Because they always seem to come home to a burning village, a mother being buried alive, speaking truth, uncovering lies, because this Indian war is relentless. No home, no moment in time to breathe. And there is nothing new about this renewed relationship when we are still being buried, our houses still burning, and we still can't find our children. Maybe they are at the river waiting. Thank you. I am going to jump into this next poem, unless somebody has like a question or something that they want to
Do your thing.
do my thing.
Yeah. Go.
Okay.
People are processing the energy. People are feeling it. Yeah.
Fair,
There's
fair.
tears in the eyes. People are just, keep going.
Okay. This next poem is called Cascade. So in my community, the government of Ontario has said these are the lands in which is the places to grow, where population is going to grow. It's called the Places to Grow Act. If you take that map and you lay it on top of the map of Six Nations Haudenosaunee lands, they are exactly the same map. There's one part at the northern top that isn't, but they're like virtually identical. So from a policy perspective, Haudenosaunee lands have been targeted and designated for population growth. And so that means that there are our traditional lands. A lot of Indigenous communities are dealing with like forestry, mining, oil and gas, these types of like resource extraction. My community specifically, the issue or like industry that we're kind of facing is housing development, because all of our lands have been slotted for population growth. And so we had set up an occupation of one of these housing developments. And it kind of turned into a thing. 1492 Landback Lane. And the land is currently still being occupied by us. And there was 43 people charged, myself included. They tried to stop allies from bringing us food and water, basic necessities. There's also a $22 million lawsuit over this that's still, we've had some successes in the courts. So this poem is about kind of getting arrested for simply trying to like tap trees and pick medicines on my own lands. And was interesting because my ex-husband was the spokesperson for it. And so when I was arrested, literally like stalked and hunted down by the police, the mayor of the county put out a statement where he literally applauded the OPP, Ontario Provincial Police, for arresting me and called on them to continue to target my children and my family. And so this is kind of a poem. This is a poem about that. Oh, and also they spent a total of $21 million over 6 months to police 12 Indians sitting in a field, singing songs, eating food. And yeah, so this is a poem about that. My body is in fear of white men as their ways cascade over me, pinning themselves against my skin. I am not free to move as I wish, to hunt, to build a home, to govern this body, to soak my children in love and culture because my whole world is immobilized. I can't seem to get them off my body. I can't seem to get them off my land. And so the white men clap proudly for other white men as they publicly conquer me, push my face into the soil I so desperately want to protect. Then the earth grows angry, voices her concern with an early spring, a hailstorm, a tornado. She floods rivers and oceans because she is trying to speak to them. But the white men are not fluent in the language of consent, of survival. The white men are not fluent in the language of emotion, of earth. And so the whole country stands by and watches from their houses on stolen land, pockets full of Indian money, food in their bellies, and words like reconciliation spilling from their lips. Thank you. One of the other parts that we don't often talk about when it comes to truth and reconciliation is understanding why residential schools happen. Sorry, I just had like an update thing pop up. We know that they happened. We know that they were atrocious. We know that there were children that were murdered. We know a lot of these kids were taken without consent, but we don't often ask why. And I think it's important to acknowledge residential schools happened in order for the Canadian government to have access to our lands and resources, to be able to build this country so that y'all could live here and thrive and prosper. And I think that's like a difficult truth to swallow and to digest. But it is also a truth, because residential schools were fundamentally about destroying Indigenous family structure. So as a mom, my ability to raise my children in a way that they know what the moon is telling them what to do on the land, that they know how to do those things, that's going to be the first thing that's lost, and that connection is severed between like parent and child. And so everything that we do as Indigenous people is inherently political. I don't normally do this poem within like these types of talks, because it's kind of a love poem, but it's not a love poem because everything in my life is political, down to like who I date and when that doesn't work out. So this is like a heartbreak poem, but it's inherently political. And I'm gonna do it because I feel like it's important to for y'all to like question and think about like the breakdown of Indigenous families. And I definitely feel like we're in this place of like renaissance and like resurgence of intentionally raising our children, intentionally picking partners that like we can rebuild our nations with. But this poem's not about that. This poem's about Indigenous heartbreak. But still relevant. This poem's called He Never. He never wanted me because I remind him of everything he has ever lost. I smell of rotting languages and missing women, and there is too much warrior in my blood. There is too much of this continent in my body, and my smiles look more like rubble than happiness. My face is nothing more than a constant reminder that he is broken. No matter how softly I love him, it always feels like shards of glass against skin. And so I offer him my water, and he drinks and drinks until he is full, then tells me that there is too much universe between my legs. There's too much river in my eyes. There's too much wind in my hair. My skin feels too much like the sun. He tells me that loving me means rebuilding nations. And he can't shake the feeling that he is far too broken for that kind of love. See, heartbreak, but also political. Okay. This next poem that I'm going to...
You're not going to talk about that a little bit? Wow. I got tears in my eye. You talk about that a little bit.
People
Come on,
want to
let's hear
know.
about.
The people want to know. We're very intrigued now.
In what part of it?
All of it. It's beautiful, and we all love a good story.
It's good. You told your story. I don't need more. Thank you. That was beautiful. I don't need more about that. Great. It was perfect. But you're giving me, I don't know if it's a good time to talk.
No, yes.
You're giving me, I don't know what, see, like I'm an immigrant and I have a daughter with a man from India. I don't know what to give my daughter. I'm cut off from my own culture. I'm an immigrant in this country. I don't know. You're giving me, though, a map somehow to what my home could look like here. Because, and not because, you know, this is like, not in a way that, you know, when you get a visa or a status, you get that ticket to have a life here. In a completely another way. In a way of like, in a very deep, meaningful, spiritual way of how I can take up space here in a respectful way, and how I can, what I can teach my daughter. I don't know how you're giving me that, but I'm getting sense of that, which is something that I'm in search of, or more in lack of, for last 30 years of being in this country. It's really great. Thank you. It's all the words you're sharing and your story. It's giving me. It's kind of landing me in a way. With all the complexities of who I am, who my child is, and the histories that kind of brought us here. So I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just wanted to thank you for, it's having a very deep impact on me. So I just want you to know that what you're sharing, it's how it's landing with me for now.
I love that. I think it can be such a beautiful thing when folks immigrate here and are able to like still be who they are and like find those pieces of themselves that that are important. And it's interesting too because like my people, we have adoption, we have the white roots of peace that like it's a long story. I'm not going to get overly into it, but like the idea of like accepting people from other nations is like fundamentally like who we are as a people. And so yeah, I'm really glad that that's where it's going for you.
I also think like for, you know, this narrative of the better life for immigrants, so like you're coming to a better life and you're escaping danger, and we buy into it, but it tastes like aspartame. It tastes fake. It's not, because we can't find deep meaning in it. What we can find in it is just like something like greed and pleasure, because it's a promise of something better. Yes, your life wasn't good, and so here is an opportunity at something better, but we buy into it, but we don't find meaning in it, in this pursuit of like, I'll have a better life here, right? So your points are kind of steering me in another direction and saying there is a whole, there is not just pursuit of happiness, There is deep spirituality and life that is here around us. It's not just about what you can do for your own family or for yourself and as an individual in terms of your economic status, right? That's what
Yeah.
it's bringing in, this like beautiful richness and reality, what we never talk about. We talk about.
And I think the Indigenous immigrant relationship is so important, because we mirror each other in so many different ways. Like our stories mirror each other in so many different ways, and there's the overlaps are overlapping between the two stories. And yeah, and like, I didn't say this at the beginning, but like, I started off doing this kind of the work that I do, working with like recent immigrant communities in Toronto, and we would take kids from the res to different neighborhoods in Toronto, and then take kids from those neighborhoods in Toronto and bring them to the res. And so like this relationship in particular is like has been a long time like passion of mine. And so yeah, there's so many overlaps, and I feel like we legit could like talk all day about, about and like dissect those things. And maybe y'all are gonna have to have me back again. I don't know. And we can like have that conversation.
Thank you. Another time. Thank you.
So I am gonna do one last poem, maybe two. I don't know. This poem is really, really heavy. And it's a poem that I wrote to mother my way through my own intergenerational trauma, because I still have to raise babies. I still have to raise nations, in the face of all of the things that that are going on in my life. When we had the prep meeting for this, I was telling the organizers, and this kind of goes with like the ally aspect of things. There are realities that we face as Indigenous people that you all need to be mindful of when working with Indigenous communities. So we talk about, you know, high addiction rate, we talk about suicide, we talk about houselessness, domestic violence, mental health. We talk about all of these, the symptoms, right? The symptoms of colonialism. But we also deal with the actual effects of those things. And so in the last month, in my community alone, a dear friend of mine committed suicide. There are two women in my life that were murdered from like domestic violence. My best friend's house burnt down, and she currently is a single mom of 7. So been like supporting her and my nieces and nephews, her children, and my dad's been missing, who also struggles with addiction. And like this is just, these things are ongoing, and like I really hate to say it, but like this is kind of like par for the course for my life and the reality that I face. And so being a good ally fundamentally it comes down to like those relationships. And I'm saying this because like these are all of the traumas that I am constantly having to work through and mother my way through while still raising nations. And so this is a poem that I wrote for my daughters. My daughters, I wish I could love you without intergenerational trauma wrapped around my vocal cords, without soot of English in my mouth. I wish my words felt like honey instead of bees. I wish I could love you freely without emotional constraints that have been placed on me. I wish I could love you like this place never existed, as if our home was never invaded, as if our families were not systematically torn apart at the seams, open, broken, held together by the need to decolonize, to rise. I wish I could love you as if our sovereignty was respected, without our treaties being neglected. Sometimes all I can think about is being able to love you without the weight of our land being stolen. And I want so badly to wrap my arms around you and melt into each other. Without fear of agents knocking on our door, I wish I had something more than this rage to give you. Let it be your protection. Let it be wood for your fire, tended like gardens on sunny days. I wish this poem wasn't so heavy on my tongue. I wish I could hit rewind. Go back down to that house on the river and place your grandmother back into her mother's arms. I wish I knew stillness instead of chaos, dizziness. I wish I could hit rewind. Another one dead, hung by her neck. Another one OD'd, another child denied basic humanity, another one locked up, another unfair verdict. My girls, I hope another one is never you. I wish it was understood that another one was always the intended outcome of those schools. And as a people, we have a long way to go. My girls, I wish I could love you as if we were already there. But I will love you open, broken, mother you as if you are earth and moon, land and water, intentionally. My daughters, I will love you. Thank you. I want to take a breath. I know that one. I know that one can be very, very heavy for folks. So I think that as much as we talk about all of these things, and it's important to talk about these things, it's also important to acknowledge Indigenous joy and Indigenous happiness. And for me personally, I spent majority of my adult life obsessed with the trauma and like trying to tease it out and like where is it in my family tree. How do I have conversations with my mom about how our family has been impacted by these things? How do I have these conversations with my grandmother, and what was her story, and like why did certain things happen in my family? And I've spent a lot of time doing that work. And I'm really in this place where balancing that out with the joy, because I feel like the fact of the matter is, if we don't, then we just become consumed by the heaviness, the weight. It's really easy to get swallowed up by it. And so I know I'm like, I have 1 minute left. So when we had our prep meeting for this, it was the message that I wanted y'all to walk away with is allyship is about relationships, relationships with the Indigenous people in your respective areas, relationships with the land, and relationships with the water. Secondary to that is also supporting financially different Indigenous projects, initiatives, because like I said, understanding that like I'm doing all of these things within the context that like is my life and my reality, with like all of these ongoing kind of like crises in my community. And so second best to relationship is definitely supporting financially. So I'm gonna drop in a couple of my favorite places that y'all could send e-transfers to. So the first is a youth land-based cultural program. They do amazing work, amazing work. And then there's also a queer land-based program. And then also myself. And I'm also going to drop in my website just so that you all have that. And yeah.
We're putting together a package of all the information that we're doing for the day, so we can include this also. So yeah, Mayor Carmen.
So
Sorry, interrupt. Sorry. Kimo,
Yeah. So just one quick one. Do you do some of these for youth or children in schools? Because some of it is heavy for, and some of our work we look at maybe starting it in early stages. So I'd love to see probably if you could write something, or if you already have something that is within age, maybe grade 9, 10, kids that can get some of the messages that you're sending, and so much education for me today, and so much learning, and thank you so much. But I just asked that question if you could do, you already have something related to youth or children.
Yeah, I generally don't do grade 9 is where I start. I do like grade 9, high school, and then university. I generally don't do it's just my preference, and like I vibe really well with like teenagers. That's like my passion age. And yeah, so there's my contact information there if folks want to reach out about doing other things. I'm totally down.
Thank you so much for that, Kahsenniyo. I guess I want to just share 3 takeaways that I hope reflect what you've generously shared with us today, and that personally resonated with me. One, and the most powerful one for me as a mother, is the reminder that Indigenous motherhood is a radical act of defiance, and Indigenous motherhood is political rebellion. And I think that's really, really powerful. And I hope that, especially for those of us who are parents, we can find ways to mother or parent in the service of Indigenous liberation. The second takeaway for me was the reminder that Indigenous is not just an identity, but it's a connection to land and to all of its inhabitants. So that was really a powerful reminder for me as well. Thank you for sharing that. And the third one, and perhaps the most important one right now, is to share generously resources if you can. So it's important that as we talk, we also walk the talk. And for those of us who are in a position to contribute financially, that's a really big piece. It's a really, really big piece. So if there's a way for anyone here in this group to support any of these causes that Kahsenniyo has shared with us, and that we will share in the resource that we will send out hopefully tomorrow, I encourage everyone to do that if you can. Thank you again. It was really, really beautiful. It was powerful. I know that people are still processing. I am still processing, and I thank you. I thank you for sharing this with you. It was very generous. Kahsenniyo. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything before we move on to our break. Any thoughts or reflections? I know it's heavy.
Well, could I
Silence is
say
good too.
something?
Please, Iqbal, go ahead.
Yes, I really appreciate what she shared with us. I mean, it's not just poetry or words of inspirations, but there is so much involved in it. And it's a cry of not a mother, but I think representative of it. And there is so much to digest. I really appreciate what she's been trying to do and accomplish. And I'm sure at the end, I would say that just keep it up.
Yeah.
Thanks, Iqbal.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kahsenniyo.
Do you have any more words for us before we break?
I just maybe want to encourage, like, depending on how folks feel, like if you are feeling heavy, to like take time to like do some deep breaths and just kind of yeah, take the time to like be kind to yourself and like process the work and yeah, just really want to encourage that.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're going to break. How does this work?
Yeah, let's have a break. Can we reconvene in at 3:15?
3:15, okay.
We'll come back here for
3:15,
3:15 and then we'll go to the break rooms. All right, so don't close the Zoom, people.
No. So we're just going on a break. Yeah, until 3:15, and then we'll see you all back in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you.
Hello, new people. We're currently still on break, but we're glad to have you.
Thanks, Ruben. Okay, I think we can come back if people are ready.
I think I'm ready. Okay.
Awesome. Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to have some water or warm tea or stretch. I know the last piece was really, the last section I mean, was really heavy and intense. So hopefully we'll have a moment in the breakout rooms to also process that if necessary. So I think we can start moving into our breakout rooms. Just as a reminder, we have 4 breakout rooms and there are 4 different themes. And will it be helpful if I just go over the titles again? Maybe. So room number 1 is Cultivating Community Through Cultural Exchange, and that is facilitated by Elmira. And she already shared with us some of the ideas that will be dissected and shared and explored in her group. Room number 2 is the blanket exercise and relationship building outside the box, facilitated by Kimo. And he also already had an opportunity to share what the room is all about. Room number 3 is the Surrey First Peoples First Peoples Guide for Newcomers and other resources, facilitated by Tina. And then room number 4 is activism and community voice, which will be facilitated by myself. And I have created the rooms. You can select which room you want to go to. Now, having said that, we may run into the unlikely scenario where everybody goes to one room or a couple of rooms, and then 1 or 2 rooms are empty, or with just one individual or 2 individuals. So in that case, I hope it's okay if we reorganize. I hope it's not necessary, but I just want to put it out there. Or Ruben is saying no. What do you think, Ruben?
I'm really big into like consent. So if somebody really wants to have a discussion, I mean, if you're in a small room, then just have a great conversation. That's it. That's what I say. If you're in this, unless you're in a room of like 2, then otherwise, but if it's a small room, just like have an in-depth conversation, because we really tried to think about these rooms at different levels. Like if you're in this and you're really interested in activism or advocacy, you go see Mayor Carmen. If you want to hear about what Surrey Lip is doing around newcomer guides and all that stuff, go see her. If you want to talk to Elmira about how to be in an organization that is working with other Indigenous organizations and leaders in terms of how those relationships work, go see her. And if you want to talk to Kimo about the blanket exercise and specific engaging activities, go see him. And everybody, I assume, should have a bit of interest in one of those areas. So take this as the professional development element of the day, and go where you think it's going to benefit your work. And if we end up in a room of 2, whatever, make your work good. Because as long as we don't have a room of 40, I don't think we will. So I'm trusting everybody.
Hopefully we won't run into anything like that.
It's fine. It's fine.
But I guess we'll find out. And thank you for posting the room descriptions. Are we ready? Is there anything that anyone wants to discuss here before we go into our rooms?
I just have a quick. Oh, sorry, Mary Carmen. I just have a quick question. Will we be able to share our screens in the breakout rooms if we want to show some examples of work?
That's a really good question. And I actually have prepared a small presentation. So I should have thought about that before. I think we may. I think I should be able, because I'm a host, but I'm not sure about you, Kimo, and Tina. Should we find out?
Let's try.
And
yeah, time is short. Let's try. And we're
Okay.
trying to get back here for what? 3:45?
Can we say 3:45 so that we have 15
cool.
minutes to share and discuss?
Great.
Okay. As a bigger group? Okay.
Great.
Perfect. So breakout rooms, open our rooms, go whatever your interest takes you, and see you back.
In this role, I went to school and studied nursing, and I practiced nursing at the U of A hospital for a couple of years. And all that I've had, maybe a few modules about the Indigenous people and their history, and not much that I actually learned from the blanket exercise. So the blanket exercise actually educated me more than I've ever learned. So I thought, what a way that we can use these to actually educate new immigrants when they come to Canada. Because at the end of the day, like me, I became a nurse, or now I am in a particular role. Some become social workers, some become lawyers, doctors. and we transition into those roles, and majority of we will be working with Indigenous people. And if we don't have the grounded information, and like our guest speaker spoke today, we will not be we will not know exactly how we'll be actually dealing with these people that we are working with. And we will be placing power of authority, whether you're a nurse, a social worker, a lawyer. Uh, in, Indigenous people come to us to seek these services, and we automatically, unconsciously have been placed in an authority role wherein if we don't know the history and the background of, and some are working with children's services, if we don't know the background of the Indigenous people and how it's intergenerationally affected them, we will not be know how we're doing delivering some of our work. So in line with the calls to action 93 and 94 of the TRC, which I thought we need to ensure that newcomers in Canada learn about the history of Indigenous people. This is where I thought the Local Immigration Partnership, especially Lloydminster, so that we will be playing a great role. And one of the ways to do that was through this learning information session of the blanket exercise. So during the exercise, you know, for some of you who don't know, you think in my background there, you see a blanket is placed, participants are arranged on a series of connected blankets representing ancestral lands prior to colonization. All the blankets on the floor represent originally how the land was before colonization by European settlers. And over the course of the session, you will realize that these blankets are removed or disappearing or folded into smaller squares by the facilitators who are representing European settlers. They are also representing government agents. They are also representing clergy, like the priests, and treaty markers, where then they started having all these treaties. So over the course of this session, these blankets, they continue to go into smaller session, and isolated areas are removed from the blankets altogether until the remaining arrangement of these squares bears little resemblance to what started as unobstructed access to rights to the land we now call Canada. So my hope at that time was that the blanket exercise can be the first step to understanding and learning about Indigenous people for newcomers. And this has actually helped in many cases, not only the newcomers, but people working with newcomers, people I brought in many different sectors of the population in Lloydminster. The police, officers have attended, and they said all they've learned, even through their training and understanding of it, the blanket exercise have actually taught them something different they've never learned, and how they are dealing when they are called to actually deliver, to come to where they are called in case there's a problem with the Indigenous people. So children's services staff have come to the blanket exercise and have to actually learn something, and they have changed how they working with children in foster homes, and as well as those parents who wanting to see their children. So things have evolved. And so when I came, the relationship with the LEAP here was a challenging one with Indigenous people. And how do I start this relationship with the Native Friendship Center? So before I started, I went to the Native Friendship Center and I sat with the executive director and her staff, and I said, this is what I want to do. My goal is to educate newcomers coming to Lloydminster to understand the history of Indigenous people. How would you help me? I have this idea of the blanket exercise, but I don't know people here in Lloydminster. Originally, I'm from Edmonton. and I came to Lloydminster because of this work. I don't know people here. How would you help me? And they were surprised that they said nobody has ever asked them about something like this, and nobody have respected them the way I actually came to sit with them, talk with them, and bring the idea. And the other thing that I did was to also make them a fiscal agent in Native Friendship Center. So when I applied for funding from, because there was no funding about it with the LEAP. So I asked the city, I said, I also did a presentation. So I prepared a presentation and the impact it would have to city council. I requested, I applied, and they gave me chance, they gave me audience, and I had slideshows about the blanket exercise and the impact I believe, the relationship building I believe it will bring for people in Lloydminster. And city staff, city councillors and the mayor listen, they ask questions. And after I submitted my application for funding, I got the funding. So they funded me about 3 years. So, and I wanted that relationship to continue. So I used the Native Friendship Center for them to be the fiscal agent for the blanket exercise. And so when I wrote all the application, I did all the reporting. All they do was to administer the funds, and I'll give directives or instruction on who to pay, the media and speakers, and they help connect me with speakers. So that built and continued to build a strong relationship between myself and the Indigenous people. And then that actually made the Native Friendship Center started ask if we can co-collaborate even to have seniors, Indigenous seniors and immigrant seniors to come together to have dinner and have conversations. So these are some of the impact. And I have got requests from schools, from the city have also personally for their own staff have requested to have the blanket exercise. In all of these blanket exercises, I have invited the mayor of Vermilion and the mayor of Lloydminster to actually give an opening remarks. And I have invited politicians like our MLAs to some of this blanket exercise to open the session and to talk about the importance of understanding the history, as well as the need for us to come together and support this. So the blanket exercise have created a lot of changes in the way immigrants view Indigenous people, and have actually encouraged a lot of relationship building between immigrants and non-immigrants and Indigenous people. So 2 years after I've done it with this funding from the city, it was time for CFP. And I included that in my CFP for 5 years. IRCC Act actually. So I used the budget that I have been using prior to that. And I actually estimated that to cost me $5,500 per year to run that. And I included that in my CFP, and which was approved by IRCC. So every year, that is a deliverable, is community engagement, community connections. So these are the line items that I relate in my reporting when it comes to community engagement, community connections. These are the areas that I talk about because it builds the connections, the relations. And in many cases, I have actually, and I formed a steering committee of our partners to actually design how we are going to do the blanket exercise every year. It has changed, and this year we're talking of doing it in schools, and the facilitator is already has a specific one designed for children in schools. So these are some of the things, and IRCC have funded it for the past 5 years, and I have a budget line for it every year that I actually do. And if I need extra money, then I just ask the city if depending on my budget and the needs for it. And I have been able to do the blanket exercise, and it has built the strongest relationship with Indigenous people I've ever seen anywhere that I have, because there's an understanding of, it is, we even did the blanket exercise during the COVID virtually, and we have a recording of it. It was challenging to do it virtually because like she was talking today, some emotional aspect of the blanket exercise. You need to be in person for you to be able to have somebody near you to talk to you, to see how you're reacting to it, so you don't get sucked into some of the impact of the blanket exercise during the debrief. But we were able to do that virtually during the COVID, and it was successful. We had tons of people across the country actually attended that blanket exercise that we had virtually, and we still have included. So far, this is what I think I have concerning the blanket exercise. And if you have questions on how I went about doing it and the impact it has had, and the collaboration and how to build collaboration and the funding aspect, I will be ready to take those questions. As I said, this is an interactive discussion, and I'm here to answer some of the questions. And that also helped the NLS, the second podcast that was done by the NLS was the blanket exercise, wherein I have IAT member, council member of the partnership from the college, and then myself, as well as the facilitator, Kevin John, who facilitates the blanket exercise, to be in that podcast. And that has been, even locally, that has actually impacted how the essence, and anytime a blanket exercise has been done in Lloydminster, it has actually drawn a lot of people to it. So Nubia, I go with you first. What is the question?
I'm trying to visualize the exercise and what it looks like, because I'm one of those people who have heard about it a lot, but I haven't experienced it. Are you back to doing this in person? How many people attend? How do you invite these people? You have the mayor there, so it sounds like it's something more formal. Do they join just for the opening remarks? I'm just trying to visualize what this looks like. So if you could walk us through that, that'd be great.
So definitely there is always, because size matters, because a facilitator, they look at, I think, between 22 to 23, and they can go up to 40 people. And they want to be able to get everybody in. And usually if it's more than, they will divide the sessions. So it can be one day they will do the 20 something. They want to at least maximum have 30 people in one room at a time, because for the effectiveness. And virtually, it was interesting. We actually send the artifacts, because what they do, they share the artifacts about Indigenous people, who is having a baby, who is having a blanket, who is having 2 people, and they took pictures and they sent it to pictures. But in person, yes, we're back in person. We're actually having one today, actually, but not organized by me, but organized by some another agency. But they asked me, so that is the thing that is happening now. People call me and say, we want to do blanket exercise in our organization. Can you help us with the facilitator? So so maximum of 30 people. And if the mayor attends, depending on the day, they would stay the full session, but they have been in sessions before. So if he's not able to attend, if it's a councillor coming with a message, the councillor attends. And they have brought in the police, have brought in all the sections. So I look at that and I deliberately invite specific people to attend, because these are the people I want to. So yes, we are back. And if you see in the background there, you see they all sit in a circle, and then everybody's asked to be on the blanket. before the session. And once the session and everybody's given a scroll from, depending on how many people are there, say if it is scroll 1 to 30, each of the scroll represent what was done to Indigenous people, and you'll be given instructions about it. Let's say children were taken from their parents. The blanket you're standing on, they ask you to fold them and take them to a specific meaning. You're taking that blanket to a residential school. So that portion of the blanket will be referred to the residential school. And at the end of the day, you'll see that whole blanket would be off, and now what is remain are those residential that they have now, which has shrunk to specific corners and small places, as opposed to how the blanket started. So the blanket represents the map of Canada, but once they start ripping off and dividing and taking, and those who died during smallpox or tuberculosis, they have their own. Those who went to residential schools. So, and today's, even the current present day, those who are incarcerated, those who are in foster homes, a continuation. So they have scrolls for everything. But on a one-on-one, definitely, if you need, I'll send you information on how it's run and how I've done it, and even in terms of flyers on how we send it out, and newspaper, because I advertise on newspapers as well sometimes. Okay, Stephanie.
Thanks, Kimo. Actually, I think it's interesting because a couple of years ago, when I was looking at how to, I was working at a settlement organization, working with youth, and I was looking at how to kind of talk about reconciliation with some of our clients. And I found the podcast formerly known as From Our Lips to Your Ears, and I think it was you who was speaking about the Kairos blanket exercise, and as well as the I think the Lloydminster Lip does the Indigenous Day event. And it was really inspiring. And although I wasn't equipped to perform a blanket exercise then, it kind of provoked some ideas around that I could do with some of the newcomer youth. But now it's like a full circle moment as I'm with LIP now, and listening to you speak about it live is kind of cool. But I was wondering, so I have a couple questions. So did the Native Friendship Center facilitate the blanket exercise then? Is that why they were the fiscal agent of the funding, or how did that work?
No, it depends if they have somebody, a staff who can do it. So these are people who knows the history and who knows how to do. And they have, I think they have actually the Kairos blanket exercise itself. It's they have a national organization that actually does that. And if you go through you send them an email, I'll send you the information. I don't have it right now, but I can send you the information for all those who might need that. I'll send that, and they will send you a list of things that you need to do and prepare. And then they will also connect you to local facilitator. So I was fortunate by meeting with the Native Friendship Center. They identified and showed me somebody who is good at facilitating and has their own story. His mom was also part of the residential school. In one of our posters, actually, they allow me to take a photo of them, and then the mom, the sister, and himself, which we use in some of our flyers. So no, I made them fiscal agent is to build sometimes the trust that I need them to have about. I just don't want to use them to help me facilitate something, but I want them to be part of it. And I said I will write the grant to the city and I'll do all that. So but now that I'm actually getting the money from IRCC directly, I still work with them, and I will ask them to do bannock or something else to bring within. And I ask them for the drummers, because I use drumming I have one of the recordings that we did. So we have drummers who will come and dancers, Indigenous dancers who will come before we actually start the blanket exercise. So Native centers still provide the connection for me to these people, and I give them the honorarium for what they're doing.
I think that's a really thoughtful and important approach to go about it, and that has kind of inspired me. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Any other question?
Oh, sorry, my hand went down.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not, it's Deborah. Thank you very much for sharing that. I had reached out to Kairos way back during the pandemic, and they said they weren't doing the things, and maybe it was just because of where I was. I'm in Regina. But I'm really, really interested in how you advertise to the community. Like you have this relationship with the Friendship Center, and you said you had flyers, but you also said you very specifically invited people. So can you
Yes.
tell me a little bit about your thought process, about how you invited, and then did you advertise it to the whole community, or did you just send specific invitations to those you wanted there?
So thanks, a very good question. And it has been year to year. And every year for me, I make tweaks and changes. And I actually not only have done it in Lloydminster now, Vermilion as well, because I also have the Vermilion mayor too. So first, as I said in my earlier discussion, is that I brought this conversation to the mayor and council to see the importance of it. So meaning I want them to be part of it. So that is one. And I have used the local newspaper, local TV, and I have gone in, and I built that in my budget, and I can share with anybody who wants. And I built that in my budget that I'll be doing. So for advertising, I'll use that, and I will sit down and talk about the Kairos blanket exercise to one of the allow me to go there for free, even to talk about it on the TV and radio when we do have it. I only I pay for advertisement on the newspaper, and so advertise that to the general public. And it depends on what I want at that particular moment. And sometimes I am deliberate. I wanted certain people to be on board, like children's services. I want the RCMP to be in, people from the hospital, people from the college. So I target and send specific messages. And some of them are in my partnership council as well. So I use my partnership council to actually target them to bring in people to the Kairos blanket exercise. And I use the Native Friendship Center to help me advertise as well to some of, because interesting as it is that as she was talking today, a lot of Indigenous people don't know about their own history as well. So I have seen in my blanket exercise a lot of Indigenous people coming to learn about their own history. So it is not only immigrant. I've seen both immigrant and Indigenous people and non-immigrants coming together to learn about the same history that I'm hoping to make everybody get. So these are some of the ways that I've advertised it. And now what I did, because I'm trying to do a school, I called the city and I said, which schools are we going to do? So I then call and talk to some of the school boards. This is what I intend to do. And 2 schools have come up. And now what I'm even thinking of doing is maybe renting a space and inviting the various schools who will send representative rather than just doing one school, or we could do one school at a time. So these are the thoughts we are planning to do right now.
Thank you. I have another question related to people. So what kind of mix would you have? So how many newcomers to how many Indigenous to how many sort of public servant kinds of people would you have?
I wish I have means to share some of the pictures here. I have various, it depends. And the last one I did last year, I think I actually did my last fiscal year one this past, I did it in February, but I'll be doing another one shortly here. So I've got I actually approached the Imam. I've got the Imam sent about 4 people from the Muslim community to attend. And one woman and 3 men, and out of the 3 men, they had 1 youth. So I bring youth, women, and the parents. So I will say the first session that I did have a panel discussion about sharing immigrant history, immigrant experience. And after the immigrant experience, then I have the blanket exercise. So I have a panel of immigrants from different immigration. I have a refugee, I have an economic migrant, I have international foreign worker. So I have a panel of different kind of immigrants to Lloydminster, present their own stories about immigration. And then I have the blanket exercise followed after that. So I think 2 years ago, what I did was probably targeted employers. And so that was mostly very few immigrants that are there. Ruben.
We're over time. We got to go. I know this is amazing. I hope y'all could connect offline and have a more fulsome conversation. I'm sorry, but we're out of time.
Okay.
Could you send us all that information, Kimo?
Sure, I will.
Like a session that you have planned that we would kind of be able to look at and build off of. That would be so helpful.
For sure. I would send that through Ruben, and so they can send that to. So I'll send all those things.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Report back sort of approach. So if there is anything that anyone wants to share, this is the time. We're going to wrap up pretty soon. But if there's anything that anyone wants to share, please go ahead.
More times in the rooms? Like when I jumped into the room, I felt like I cut a conversation short. Like I think it kind of shows that maybe we as LIPs need more space to discuss these issues in general. That's kind of what I heard, but I don't know. Do we need more?
I think we always need more time. We always need more time.
Does anyone have any words? Because I got some.
I think once again, the whole idea of relationship building is really important, and the LIP can be that connector piece. And I think that's really important, that as LIPs, we are seen as that connector, that we are not doing the direct services. We are not taking over things, but we are working together with the people in the community to see what they want, who they suggest, and bring them together so that they can not only work together with us, but then take some of the ideas on themselves, the whole community idea, community development idea where you work yourself out of a job. We'll never work ourselves out of a job, but there may be certain sections of things that we do that the community can then take over.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else? So can I ask the facilitators of each room to share how it went or anything, like anything?
I don't know if we have enough time for that. We have 5 minutes.
Okay. So
yes.
what I did was I went over all of the comments and I pulled out some of the themes. So so here they were: acknowledgement of the land and ancestry, gratitude for nature, self-awareness and accountability. And these are all things I guess I want to thank the entire group for bringing today. That's kind of how we're closing. So there was a lot of self-awareness and accountability. There was questions about engagement and ethics. There were diverse perspectives on identity and belonging. People always shared a bit of themselves whenever they shared anything else, and I thought that was real and lovely. There was storytelling, respect, and importance for storytelling. There's talk about challenging hierarchies, and also a lot of us brought our spirituality into our conversations as to this work as well. And then there were people sharing links and resources. Shout out to it's MUHI Mumuhi, I think. They shared a document that I was planning on sharing myself, and I think that's so beautiful and lovely. And I just wanted to shout that out. And there was empathy and collaboration. So I just wanted to say that in the chat, that's all the energies that I found. So I wanted to thank you all for bringing that to the table and for your participation today. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Ruben. Go ahead.
No, that was mostly it. Yeah, that was that. I was gonna pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Ruben. I think this was a really powerful session. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you're taking away learning and unlearning that you hopefully will be able to apply, not only in the work you do as a LEAP coordinator, but also on your everyday commitments to social justice. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our working group, our anti-racism working group. Also encourage anyone who's interested in joining our group to please get in touch with me. I also want to thank the Newcomer Council members who were a critical part of the planning of this session. And of course, I want to thank my colleague and friend, Ruben, for doing a magnificent job of co-hosting with me. I am so lucky and so humbled to do this work with you. And I also want to invite you to the Professional Development Day organized by the NLS Research Group, which will be hosted October 19. We will send an email tomorrow with some of these with all of these resources, and I will attach the invitation to that professional day that is being planned by my colleague Satya. So if anyone is interested in joining that as well, you can join that group, that professional development day as well. Thank you again, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the day.
Okay. And the last things I'm going to say to the Newcomer Council that we worked with, I know we didn't get y'all to talk much, but we did take into account all of your questions and all of your thoughts, and we tried to create this as a way to address that. And we really, really, really do appreciate you. We just hope you could eat the cake that we cooked. Also, we know that we didn't have enough time for all the things that we tried to get to, but I think it's because we're trying to get through so much. So if you want more of this type of content, when we do send the feedback out, please say that you want more and be specific on the types of more that you want, because if you're specific at the types of more that you want, we will do our best to advocate to create that. We did not have enough time to get to everything. We tried to rush to give you all this stuff, and we do appreciate you. You guys are doing amazing work. We love you. A lot more work to do. Have a great day. Mwah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you both. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.